Hello and welcome to another Xero How To, where today we're going to look at Xero Files and how to get the most effective use out of Xero Files. So I'm just going to share the demo company with you guys. And firstly, how do we get to Xero Files? Well, we select the company name and we simply select Files. Here's one I've loaded already. So what we have here is a really useful functionality within Xero so that we can basically organize our files in Xero directly. So this is handy, like you might have Dropbox, you might have Google Drive, then again you might not have either, in which case you can make use of this. And actually it's quite handy to make use of this either way, because it keeps all of your documents in one place. They're all within your accounting system and you can make use of them. All cloud-based.
Yeah, it's really handy if you've got, say, a business coach or an accountant that you want to share your Xero account with, but you might not necessarily want to share your Google Drive or Dropbox with. So if you've got key documents that they need to see, use Xero Files, super helpful.
Now, in Xero Files, we also have the option to manage folders. So we've added a couple here, but we can keep adding more folders if we like. So really handy to organize some of our files. Now, there's a reason we might also use this, which we'll show you a little bit. But firstly, what we have is essentially a workflow. So if I've uploaded anything into Xero Files, it will come into the inbox, in which case I can choose what I do with it.
Yeah, and that's the point, isn't it? Is everything that's in there is something that you need to do something with. You shouldn't just leave your inbox, your files inbox, with loads and loads of documents. Use it as a workflow to help you do something with it and to help you take action.
So if I select these drop-down items, I can simply add it to new sales, add it to new bill, new receipt money, new spend money. So I can physically create a new transaction with the attachment involved. So really helpful. Once I've done that and approved the item, this item will be removed from my inbox. So I'll then drop down to 11 items in this instance. And what I'll then find is that it's actually attached to the document I created. However, if we actually, I'm just going to move a couple of these into, say, a different folder. If I actually want to keep the document within Xero Files, all I need to do is move it to a folder first. So I might actually move it to a folder for client A and then go into this folder and I can add it to a new item. Now, seems like exactly the same thing, except if it's in a subfolder, it remains in the subfolder as well. So actually what we have is basically a completed item, which we've got a transaction for, but we've still got a record of the document.
Yeah.
Really handy in particular if we're using things like terms and conditions, because if we haven't built them into our actual invoice itself, we can save them here and we can send it as an attachment. So it's a really handy little tool to make use of.
Yeah, so if you go into the bill at the end there on your fourth tab, say you wanted to attach a document, so we've got magnifying glass there attached. Let's add King from that client A directory and then save. If you go back into your Xero Files and just refresh that, have a look at your client A folder, and you'll see that King is associated with a document that you've just uploaded. So you can only attach one document or one image, one file to one document. So if, for example, you wanted to attach King to multiple transactions, you'd have to have multiple uploads. So that is something to take into mind when you use Xero Files. So if, for example, you have a similar document like terms and conditions that you want to send along with your quotes, if the terms and conditions are different, then have different T's and C's in a folder here that you can then attach to a quote before you send it. If your terms and conditions are consistent and they're the same for every customer, for every client, for every service that you deliver, try and build them into your sales orders or your invoices, and that way you don't have to keep worrying about uploading.
But overall, it's really handy, and
yeah,
of course we can straight away see which document it's associated with as well. So if we ever need to, we can simply go into it from our Xero Files. So we can see exactly who's been sent the given document, which invoice or which quote number it's associated with, and therefore if they've approved the quote, they've accepted the terms and conditions.
And another way of using Xero Files is if, for example, if you work closely with an accountant or a bookkeeper and you've got stuff that comes into your inbox that you don't necessarily know what to do with, if you forward that document into Xero Files, you can put it in there and leave it in the inbox, and that becomes your accountant or your bookkeeper's workflow list in that inbox.
Speaking of sending in, how we get documents in here, there's a few options. We can either take a photo, we can upload files, or what is probably the most popular and one of the most efficient is we have the option to send files via email. Now, there's a link up here which is unique to the organisation in question.
And it's unique to the Xero Files
yes.
organisation in connection, and that is really, really important because
if we go to bills and we're creating bills from emails, this is a different link. So once again, it's unique to the client. It's unique to bills being processed via email. So two different emails on this one.
So if you use the Xero bills for pushing documents in, if you've got purchase invoices or receipts, Xero bills will do the basic kind of bookkeeping entries that receipt bank auto entry will do. Doesn't take a huge amount of the data that you've got, but it does really save your time, and it puts the PDF attachment onto it. However, I was talking to a client yesterday who kept sending documents into Xero bills and kept sending bills into Xero Files, which then meant I had to process them all manually. So set them up in your contact list as Xero bills with a separate email address and Xero Files with a separate email address, and that way you'll know which one you're sending it to.
Yeah, because they look relatively similar, but they're also containing a lot of random jargon, so you're not really going to remember them.
And they're both the function of Xero Files effectively, so you'll see they've got the same @xerofiles.com address, but a different front end.
Yep. So very handy to make sure you've got the two separate. So another thing to show you is actually, I'm going to have a look in a bill in here. So what I actually have is, I have an attachment on my bill, but I might actually look at this and think, okay, in this example, it's not particularly good because I understand what it's saying. But if I actually had an image which said like J,
well, that might be like, Queen, for example.
Yeah, this might actually, okay, I've actually checked the document. This should actually be Queen, not King. So I can't actually do anything with it on here, but if I send it to the client, it's going to look a little bit silly because it's going to say King when it should say Queen. So what I can instead do is, if I select a little cross, I don't have to delete it. What I can actually do is remove and save to the file library. Now I'm just going to go in and I'm going to refresh this tab.
Don't forget to refresh because Xero won't know that you've just updated it.
So what I have is, actually I saved it in client A, didn't I? So what I actually have is a document here which I want to rename. So I rename it by selecting the little cog, and actually this should be Queen, and I might be OCD and want a capital letter instead. So what I now have is this document here. What I want to do is I want to reattach it to my bill in here with the amended address. So I can simply select Add File from File Library, go into the relevant folder, and I can add the file back. So it's exactly the same document, different naming convention. So handy if you've got these items which you've, say, forwarded on from email and they're just a load of letters and a load of numbers and they don't really give any clear image of what they're actually for when you send them on to the client.
Yeah, so Xero Files is really helpful, and we use it quite a lot with clients where we perhaps don't have the Google Drive, or perhaps you don't have the OneDrive account. If you do have those, then they're quite handy to use also. The trouble you get sometimes with sharing big folders and big drives is that the documents get lost in the noise. Whereas if you put them in here in Xero Files, it's quite clearly must have a financial implication because it's in Xero Files and it's sitting in your accounts, and somebody needs to do something with it if it's in your inbox. So if you're talking through your monthly accounts with your accountant or your bookkeeper, you've got everything in one place.
It's also quite handy to make use of this for your sales invoice side of things as well.
Definitely.
So you might not just be using it for bills, you might also be using it for sales. So if I had a sale and I've created it, I'm just going to attach one to an existing sale, so I don't need to do that. But what I actually have here is I've attached an item to my invoice, so I've got a related file. Now, if it's sitting in this category, I can see it internally, but if I send it to the client, they won't be able to see the document. So if you do want the client to see the document, simply select the cog and select Include with Invoice. So they will only be able to see what's in this section. They won't be able to see what's in the related files. So external, internal. And if we decide actually we didn't want to include it with the invoice, we can easily ping it back into the related files.
And that's really handy for purchase orders or quotes, contracts, things like that. So the kind of stuff that you want to send along with your sales overview, with your invoice, you won't want to necessarily miss or send with an accompanying email. Now, the other way that they are quite useful is if you've got expenses that you need to recharge. And if you have expenses that you are recharging, always attach a copy of the expense document or the underlying purchase, which will increase your chance of your customer paying back a lot faster.
Yeah, because then all of a sudden you've got the supporting documents.
Yeah, and then of course rename them so it makes sense. So
yeah,
we
they're
have
probably not
clients
helpful.
that recharge, anything up to 20 expenses a month on some projects. So it's much easier for the client's client to check those recharges if the document actually means what it says on the tin.
Yeah. And then when you go to email, there will be a few drop-down lists down here. Drop-downs? Little check boxes. So basically, where it says include file as attachments down at the bottom, this is the option we would need to select.
Yeah.
So basically it's saying, I've attached something to this invoice as an image. I would like you to also send this within the email. So just make sure that if you are intending to forward them, please do select that.
Yeah, it's like double verification, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
So you want to attach it with the email, and then just make sure that you actually do attach it.
Yeah, it's like a self-defense mechanism, so you don't accidentally send something you didn't intend to. So it's definitely worth considering that. Yeah. And then nice and tidy. So if you aren't currently making use of Xero Files, I would recommend having a look at it, seeing if it's something which you can use. And if you are using Xero Files, I hope this has given you a bit of an insight for some of the things that we perhaps use it for, some of the things we find it's helpful with. And overall, thank you very much for listening, everyone. I hope you found this video useful. Please let us know in the comments if you enjoyed this video. And likewise, if you have any queries, please also do let us know. Thank you very much, everyone.
And we'll see you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.